Academy, and for those of you out there joining this conference. I'm here today to answer as many of the questions as I possibly can. In the room with me, I also have the Dean, and so we're going to take your questions. You can type them in onto the website, and our assistant here will read those questions to me, and I'll answer them to the best of the knowledge, to the best information we have at this time. If the question involves academic, go ahead and send them now, but I'm going to defer those academic questions to the tail end of this briefing, where the Dean will come forward and be able to answer issues about online education, what we will be doing with the cadets who do remain here, what their instruction might look like, probably a hybrid type of instruction. But much of this is a dynamic environment, as you noticed. If you think back to Friday of last week and Friday today, what has happened throughout the world and in our country, what our president has stated, the fact that all major sports have been closed down. The governor of Georgia has requested that all schools close for at least 2 weeks. Georgia High School Athletic Association has canceled all sporting events throughout the state for at least 2 weeks. There's much that's changed, and it's changing on a daily basis. At this time, I'm very pleased to report that we can still say there are 0 confirmed cases on this campus. However, we're practicing an extraordinary amount of extra cleaning. We have a disinfecting crew that's coming through the buildings on an almost daily basis now, and we have stockpiles of supplies that can take us for a certain amount of time. So I'm here to answer your questions. The letter is pretty self-explanatory. I think the only question that keeps coming up routinely is it mandatory that your student leave? And the answer is that's the default position. We have many international students, but we also have very many domestic students whose area that they're going to return to is infected. Flights are not available to those areas. Their parents simply are not there. They're out of the country and can't return. So in those circumstances, we will keep those students through the duration of this health challenge that the world is facing. This is a historic challenge. I think you're seeing legislatures are shutting down here in Georgia. I mean, just the list goes on and on. So the best we can do is provide the resources that we do have to those students who need it most. We do have this petition process. It's online. It was in that letter. Click on that link. If you need your student to stay here, we will continue to board that student as long as this health crisis continues and the lights stay on. We're actually prepared for if the lights go out. So we may be in this for a long time, or if all of nature is willing, this whole thing could end and be back to normal operations by summertime. Also, commencement will occur on the day as scheduled, given the information we have right now, but that is subject to change as well. But it will only be for the seniors and their families and friends who want to come back for that ceremony. So with that, Zach, do we have any questions?
We've got one that's asked you about the SAT. Is it still on, or something that we can anticipate may change before tomorrow?
The SAT is still on for tomorrow, and when I say, you ask anticipate, if the governor of Georgia closes all the roads tomorrow and declares that the entire state must stay in the rooms, then it's off. But there's nothing that we're seeing for that, but then we were also surprised when the President of the United States closed Europe. So, to the best of our knowledge right now, it is our full intent to hold the SAT tomorrow.
What does it look like for online classes? What do we?
So the information on how online classes will work and when they'll begin and so on, I'm going to save that question for a few minutes from now when the Dean will take the chair here and talk about how she sees instruction proceeding. She'll also talk a little bit about how this is completely within the accreditation standards and the requirements of the state of Georgia. We are certified to go ahead and allow those online classes to occur, and the rigor of those courses and so on and so forth. And I believe we are now past the 3/4 mark of grading for the entire semester. So this last piece will close out their grades, and so students will be able to graduate so long as they complete the requirements that are going to be part of that online program. For the students who stay on campus, they're finalizing plans there. It'll probably be a hybrid, some online and some in the classrooms. We're also taking a look as we scale down, as students are leaving. We'll start combining the companies into new companies. Likely, depending upon the numbers, likely every student will have their own private room, again, for health reasons, depending upon the numbers that stay. We'll probably also separate them by a floor for the same reasons of trying to maintain keeping the virus off the campus.
I'm concerned about the lack of structure and having now to homeschool. What advice do you have, and how can we make sure our students are as successful at home as they are at school?
The dean's nodding at me. She can discuss that during her segment in a few minutes.
That's all the questions we have at this moment.
Okay, just give it a few more.
Sure.
So let me tell you some of the other things. We had gotten wind of this way before anybody else did. In fact, we got wind on January 2nd, almost to the day that when this type of occurrence of this virus was going to occur. And so starting back in January, we started stockpiling toilet paper, started stockpiling food, disinfectant materials, the types of things that we need. We also stockpiled medical supplies before medical supplies became scarce. The whole concept here was that we had some idea of what was going on in the Pacific that many others didn't. We held a meeting with representatives of the CDC, county health officials, and a PhD level epidemiologist on campus. When that meeting was completed, they indicated to us we were the first ones to contact them, and that was a couple weeks ago. So they indicated we are way ahead of where everybody else was, which allows us, should Wednesday night the president have declared no movement, we have the food on hand to feed about 500 people for a little over 2.5 weeks. But after that, if deliveries don't come, we're going to be like Northern Italy, which is wondering where their food supply is going to come from. So this has been an ongoing and difficult issue for us, but we are as prepared as we can be. We're way out ahead of the game, but nobody can prepare for, and nobody really truly expected the breadth of this situation.
We now have 8 questions.
Okay, we now have 8 questions.
Former cadet here, will any of these events impact next year's schooling? I'm looking forward to finishing all 4 years of high school at Riverside.
Will any of today's events or this current event affect next year's schooling? The answer is, if anybody out there knows whether or not this crisis will be over by the fall, please let me know, and please let me know the lottery numbers for tomorrow as well. It will all depend on how this virus unfolds, both seasonally. There are many indications that you hear from scientists that even if it does decrease in the summer, and the fact that a vaccination for distribution may not be ready for wide distribution for a year, that they're expecting that this virus may come back. So if schools all reopen and colleges reopen and then we'll reopen as well.
Why was the decision made to keep boys off campus for the rest of the semester and not just a few weeks? This is devastating for seniors.
Say that again, please.
Why was the decision made to keep boys off campus for the rest of the semester and not just a few weeks? This is devastating for seniors.
Yeah, part of that difficulty question was why did we make it for the rest of the semester rather than just a couple of weeks? The nature of our student body, coming from 26 countries and 28 states, to simply turn it on and off, to say we're going to reopen in 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks we decide to extend it a week, arranging for all of that travel and getting everybody back here at the same time so that instruction can continue in an orderly fashion, as opposed to 2 students made it back today, 3 more made it the next day, 4 the next, and then we have to close again because the virus spiked back. We're following the lead of what all of the major private universities and major boarding type institutions are doing, which is closing out the semester past the point of what we hope will be the point of uncertainty, so that we can certainly plan for a very formal online experience, except for those that have to remain here, will have the traditional experience or a hybrid experience on campus. So that was the issue there, is that it is such a fluid environment and the nature of our student body that they can't, like the local public school system, come the next day. They have to arrange trips from all over the world or all over the country to get here. It didn't seem in any way prudent or fair to those who do make it back on time to be turning this on and off. So picking a point of ending and a likely point of restarting seemed to be the most beneficial for everyone involved.
Okay, I've got another question for you. I have a flight set for my son today at 4:30 p.m. Can RMA get him to the airport in time, or do I need to arrange?
We just happen to have our transportation expert here. What's the answer to, can we get somebody to a 4:30 flight today?
I believe I've already answered that, the question for the parent, Capelstein or something like that, I believe it was, which would have to be outside. I just don't have the ability to get to the airport that early.
Our resources are already running shuttles as fast as we can run them, but we cannot make the 4:30 flight today. Probably gonna have to use Uber or other transportation to do that. If they take Uber, have them bring some wipes with them as well, and they're gonna wanna have some wipes for the plane. They can pick some of those up on the way out.
Do you know how many students will remain on campus?
Question is how many students will remain on campus? We have no idea. We don't know how many are gonna petition to remain. Petitions are flowing in pretty steadily, and your guess is as good as mine. I know a certain number, which is a very small number, who absolutely, they cannot go back to their countries. There are no flights. They are banned from going back to their countries. Those students will remain here. From there, again, remember, it is your option to petition if you want your student to stay here for the rest of the duration. If your student stays here for the duration, if your petition is approved and your student stays here, we will be having closed weekends, closed spring break. If they depart, they will not be able to return. The idea here is to limit interaction with the outside world. That said, I cannot quarantine the campus. I cannot, at this time, quarantine the campus. We have to have a steady stream of delivery of food, water, and other medical supplies, medicines for those students who remain. Those have to come in, and we do not know the status of, we can check the driver to see if the driver has a fever, but we don't know about the people who loaded that truck in the warehouse just an hour or two prior, what their background is, whether or not they're suffering from a fever. We do know from Centers for Disease Control that this virus can survive on surfaces like cardboard, paper, plastic. It can survive for several days. And so if that comes into our environment, we've got a problem. We are wiping things down, we are taking extra precautions, but we can't control everything. The whole concept is contain this as much as possible, reduce the risk, and reduce exposure.
All right, our next question is, will the 8th grade class have a graduation? It's important for us that that happen for our son.
That's not one we had talked about, so let me get back to you on that one. If we can write that one down, we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
Okay. Are there any way for testing the virus, or do we or know where we can go with our cadet returning home to older adults where we can get that test done?
So you'll need to contact your local health department or your local hospital. If you talk to the health department, my understanding is that those tests run through the health department take longer than if you can get to your private physician, there are these private firms that apparently are doing the testing in a much faster fashion. So your private doctor and your public health for your area have the test. For us, we don't have the tests on hand. We send them to the local hospital, and there they can choose to have it subject to the public process or to the private process, which is at a higher cost. But the kits have not been distributed down to the individual offices yet, at least not in this county.
Okay. So there's an academic question, so we'll just skip over that unless you want
Okay,
to.
just cite the academic question. What is the
Sure.
academic question, so
Well,
somebody will put it off?
Will the online learning be taught by teaching as they are in the classroom, or will just be turning in assignments?
Okay, and the question is, will this be online, like with the teacher in front of the room, or will this just be assignments online? And again, we'll defer that question in a few moments for the dean.
All right. The next question, and they can hear the question, sir. The next question is, what about a credit or reimbursement for room and board, or for the balance of the semester?
Sure, again, you have the option to remain. If you choose to remove yourself under contractual purpose, if you choose to remove yourself completely from the institution, that's your choice, because we still are offering instruction, and we still are offering you the opportunity to stay here, but you just simply have to petition so that we know you are staying, with the understanding that your student will then stay on this campus until the end of the situation, or until you remove the student, at which point they cannot return and they can complete it online. For those who are departing and choose to depart and remain with the online option, again, you'll hear more about the online in a moment, we are calculating what are the variable costs, and the variable costs include the food that is not being served and the laundry that's not being done. The other costs continue. For online, we still have to have the IT department, the finance department, the records keeping, the registrar, the teachers, and all those costs continue, so we continue normal operations.
You just answered the next several questions, so we're going to skip forward a few.
You'll have more information coming out on the financials. The financial office has been working they've been working overtime actually, on getting us the supplies and resources to stay open right now. Now, as students are departing and that workload decreases, they're spending the time doing the calculations of what it is that are the variable costs that we are not incurring because your student's not here. Once we know those, we'll share those with you.
You might have answered this one already, but what would you, or why would you not keep everyone here on campus until this virus is over?
Yeah, that's a very common question. Why would you not keep everyone here until this virus is over, since we don't have the virus on campus that we know as of this time? The answer really is quite simple. One is we don't know that it's not. We don't have any confirmed cases, part one. Part two, the campus is not quarantined. I say again, the campus is not quarantined. We are taking deliveries day and night to this campus, which means that virus can be introduced at any time. Similarly, because of decisions of other schools, colleges, universities, school systems, and the like, many of our faculty and staff have children who are now 7, 8-year-old children, young children, who are home, and they can't come to work for the same reasons of which many of you want your student to stay here. So the problem that you're experiencing if your student comes home is a problem that other families who work here have as well. And they cannot leave their 7-year-old, 5-year-old, or 3-year-old home alone because their school, their daycare center, or whatever has closed. Same thing happened with why all sports have been canceled. If we have students here, we can stop other schools from coming in, but again, we can't stop the deliveries. I have to have food come in, I have to have medicine come in, I have to have supplies come in, and frankly, the teachers have to come in, and the staff have to come in from off campus. When they're off campus and they fuel up their vehicle at the local gas station, we don't know who touched that handle before them. If it was a student who was returned last week from Italy from study abroad in college, if they've come home and they filled up with the car with gas and they were carrying the virus, that virus is now in the hand of the teacher. That teacher puts it onto a book, onto a piece of lab equipment, onto a door handle here. So we cannot quarantine, and therefore, we're it's passing around everywhere now, and the numbers are going up every day in the United States.
What does the day in the life of a cadet that petitions to stay here look like?
What is the day in the life of a student who petitions to stay here that's approved? What will it look like? Not clear, it's not 100% clear. It'll look very, very similar to the day that they're having right now. The reason I can't tell you is that if there's only 4 of them, it's going to be very different than if there's 150 of them who elect to stay here and have experience in a full company, or is it going to be a company of 4 people? If it's 4, I'm sure the academic program will look very different for them than if it's 150 that are remaining. Until I have those numbers, which is why we asked for the petition to be completed by March.
I think it's Monday.
Monday the 16th.
Monday the 16th. That petition gives us the time to know how many students are likely going to be staying here so we can create that experience. But they still will have a military boarding experience, the size and scope of which, obviously, if there's only 50 of them or 4 of them, the pass and review is going to look very different than when the 412 of them pass and review. The dining experience will be different. What's happening in the barracks will be different. But there will still be a chain of command, it will still be wearing a uniform, it will still be having educational activities, and to the extent that we can find other activities for them on campus, but when local movie theaters, restaurants, and other things begin shutting down, it changes that nature to a degree. We'll maintain as much of what we've done in the past as is humanly possible.
Is 6:30 p.m. for a flight reasonable?
6:30 p.m. for a flight is reasonable. I'm getting a thumbs up from our transportation coordinator. They can get people to 6:30 flights.
Okay.
The cadets who are seniors, by the way, they've been instructed to turn in their uniforms here that they'll need to wear for graduation, so we can get them laundered, pressed, and ready for them, so that when they come back here for graduation, whatever date that is, currently scheduled to be the same date as planned at the moment, we'll have their uniforms here fresh and ready to go. We have their sabers that have been secured in the commandant's office, and so that will also be ready to go.
It seems that several parents were on the wrong link originally, so they'd like you to recap the impact for the senior class.
The impact for the senior class. Okay, for those who do not fill out the petition asking to remain here for the remaining few weeks, for those seniors who go home onto the online instruction, they'll complete their online instruction as everyone else pretty much in the state of Georgia is doing. They'll complete their online instruction, receive their grades, and they will have their commencement on commencement day as planned. Unlikely we will have silver taps the night before. We will probably combine those two ceremonies into one ceremony. All parents and friends will be invited to attend, with the restrictions that if you just return from a country at that time in May that's at risk, we'll ask you to screen yourselves out of it. We will be spacing the seating probably a little further apart in the crowds, again, depending upon what the coronavirus situation is in May. But right now, for seniors, they can petition to stay, as can all other cadets, or they will go home, finish their online, come back on commencement day, get into the uniform. We will have a traditional commencement ceremony. Our speaker has remained committed to come and give the speech. He has his own plane, so he should be able to travel on his own, so long as the environment hasn't become more restrictive beyond our control.
Can the cadets get a mask and gloves to travel?
No, we do not have enough masks and gloves to travel and then still have enough here for the students who remain. They can get some wipes on the way out the door, but that's about all I can have. Remember that all the CDC talks about is that the mask will not protect you from getting the virus. The masks that are you see people wearing are for those who are sick and are coughing or putting particles into the air. They do not filter unless you have a surgical quality mask, and those surgical quality masks are the ones that we're holding on to for our healthcare officials should they have an outbreak here. There's not enough for everybody. There's a worldwide shortage of those. But if your student, and if you talk to your student, is experiencing fever, chills, and they still want to travel, we can issue a mask for those students who have the virus and it contains it from being spread to other people. But that mask will not, according to all the medical doctors that we have talked to, including the ones who came and talked to us, it will not prevent them or protect them from inhaling the virus that's in the air.
We have an academic question. Will there be any communication on how the online study will be conducted? I assume that the students will need to sign in online and the normal teacher will be the online teacher.
You're gonna get, again, just a couple more moments, you're gonna have a full briefing on how the online environment, and then she'll take additional questions as well.
Could you note at this time all of the transportation shuttles to the airport, the dates and times?
It's fluid. Today at 1800, after that, as I get itineraries, we'll start running them to the airport. Just try to be like conservative in their time.
So how will a student notify you about that they need to go?
Email, send me an itinerary.
Okay, just keep sending your itineraries through the normal process, and we will get the shuttles, we'll keep the shuttles running into the evening and early tomorrow morning. It's not a published schedule, because putting a published schedule in and then there's nobody going on that flight, but they need one 30 minutes later, he'll base it upon the request. And the earliest flight that we can get somebody to, we're saying is
1800 today.
1800 tonight is the earliest flight that we can get people to today.
Transportation at riversidemilitary.com.
Transportation at riversidemilitary.com. So send your request and itinerary to transportation at riversidemilitary.com. Unfortunately, we cannot tell you a return date. One thing we will not do is attempt to reopen all of a sudden because the virus on Monday suddenly just disappears from the face of the earth. We are remaining committed at this point to complete. We're open for those who petition to stay through the end of the semester. If you choose to leave, then you're gone for the semester. We're not going to completely reopen the school again.
You stated at this point there will be a commencement in May. If all students are not on campus, will there be a silver taps or parade?
Again, the silver taps will likely be combined with the commencement ceremony, and it will be only for seniors. I'm not going to bring back all the lower class for one day just to present a parade. It would be an unreasonable expense for families to come back for one day. But the seniors who do come back, they will have their own parade, they will have their own ceremony, they will have a speaker, their families and friends are welcome to attend. Again, we will disperse the crowd, de-densify the crowd to reduce the spread, if in fact we can even allow people back in. But right now, it's scheduled for the same day as before, the commencement.
Okay, we have several more questions.
Sure.
Just a second. It's still
Why don't we transition for a minute, and I'll let Dean give a briefing, because I know a lot of questions are academic, let her give a briefing, then I'll come back. Continue to send in your questions, and so following myself will be Dean Moore. Stand by for just a moment.
Okay. All right. And if you could just introduce yourself for the audience. Oh, give us a second.
My name's Kathy Moore. I'm the Dean of Academics here at Riverside. I want to start this conversation by saying, first of all, that for us, the digital or online learning does not equal independent study. I think that is a notion that a lot of people will have in their minds, that we're simply going to send these packets off to your student and then expect him to complete those and send them back. That is not what we intend for this experience to look like. As President said, one of the things we have to get a complete picture of by Monday is how many cadets will we have here on campus, how many will we have who are working with us from afar. While we're getting that information, we are setting up what daily instruction will look like. So when you think about this, think about it being similar to what their day looks like at this point. We have accountability. We're going to be noting when someone's not where they're supposed to be. We will still be doing grades. We're not sure if that's weekly or how often, but we're going to be doing grades frequently. We want to make sure nobody's getting behind. We'll be using multiple different platforms to engage with our cadets. We will have learning opportunities where the teacher is live with the students in her class with him or her. And that will give an opportunity for that interaction that is so important to us. It's a part of our daily routine here at Riverside. We will also be leveraging Google Classroom, which is a platform that part of our teachers already use. It's part of the suite of applications we have here at Riverside, and we'll use that as well. So we'll have things that our cadets will be doing. I mean, think about homework. Homework is something that cadets typically do outside of class, and then in this case, instead of bringing homework to class the next day, the students will submit that homework online to their teachers. We'll have those live sessions will enable us to have class participation. Again, try to think about the grades you're accustomed to seeing for your student in the progress section of my RMA. We will have tests as well. There are different ways of dealing with the testing environment. I'm not going to be asking anybody to go someplace to take a test. That's another thing that's often associated with online learning. We'll be handling that from here at Riverside. We decided to have, as the president referred to it, a pause week so that we could be fully prepared for the 23rd of March. Teachers have tools they're already using. Some tools we'll be making sure everybody's comfortable with. We're going to be sending our cadets instructions on how to use all the tools so that that will not get in the way of their being able to learn. So that's information we'll be sending out during the upcoming week, which is part of the reason we needed that transition week in order to be ready for that. We've already thought about the fact that not all of our cadets are going to be located in the same time zone. So part of our plan for what instruction looks like is going to accommodate, once we know who is where, we'll be figuring out, okay, how do we deal with the different times of day where our cadets will be. Zach, do you want to give me a question?
Sure. Could you repeat the answer to the SAT tomorrow? Is it on as scheduled?
Absolutely. SAT is on as scheduled. Doors close for students entering to take the SAT at 8 a.m. If a student is not taking the writing portion, they'll be done at 12. If they're taking writing, they'll be done at 1. We have prepared the facility for the arrival of students for the SAT. Extra cleaning has taken place. We'll have hand sanitizer as students are going in. We always have students spaced out because of the nature of the type of test they're taking. We are taking extra concern and caution to socially distance them within the testing environment. So SAT is a go.
Subject to,
Anything that the governor could ask us to do between now and tomorrow morning.
What does it look like for cadets that are granted that petition? Do they attend a physical online or physical in-person class?
They will. They will do a mix of being live with the teacher and then also submitting homework perhaps the same way. We'll be working out those details and we'll be providing a lot of communication next week. Again, our plan really does hinge on what's the ratio. How many cadets do we have that are here versus the number that are remote?
I have a question about seniors, ma'am. Talking about the senior class, how many seniors do you think are staying, and is that recommended for the seniors to stay? In that case, will the term be completed earlier? It seemed like you were suggesting the seniors stay on campus.
That was a question that was asked of the president. He can circle back around and address that, and at this point, we simply don't have the information to answer the question as to how many will stay and how many will be.
Okay. Should our cadet come home? This is a question for the dean. Should our cadet come home and fail at the online learning, will summer classes be offered to allow them to redo this quarter without being penalized academically or financially?
It is not our intent for anyone to fail. However, a commitment on the part of the cadet is an essential piece of the success. So, a cadet failing a class would look just like it would in any other circumstance. It would not be a cost-free experience for him. However, please know that our teachers are committed to making sure that our cadets stay engaged with the process. If they're not, we will be reaching out to parents to make you aware of that particular issue.
Okay. Just trying to filter out the academic questions. We've got one that asks, my son gets tutoring each week. I assume I need to hire a local tutor to work with my son?
I think that would be an appropriate plan of action, yes, to hire a tutor in your local environment.
That's all the academic questions I could piece
any
out.
closing thoughts, team?
In closing, I just want to reassure everybody that we are going to provide a quality academic experience for your student. I've got extensive background with teaching online. We are very fortunate to have 2 Google certified educators who are also teachers here. We have multiple faculty who have experienced digital learning environments themselves as a student, and some of them have also taught in digital learning environments. So we're coming at this with a lot of expertise to put together a quality experience for 4th quarter for your student.
Give us just a moment as we change scenes.
Back with you.
Okay.
Why we're drinking a lot of water is because under all these lights, it gets really warm very, very quickly.
Okay. Will all student petitions be approved?
Now, will all student petitions be approved? There is a question there that's a rationale. We just ask you to put your rationale as to why you want your student to remain, and we'll work at it from there. We don't have a set number in mind. We have a rationale in mind, and so put your rationale, make your request, and we'll move from there.
Can my boys put all their belongings in a box and you all ship it to us?
Yes, the boys are putting their stuff in boxes. The ones who know that they're returning or planning on returning or coming to leadership camp in the summer or lead summer, those boys are packing up their boxes right now. We are providing the boxes for them at no cost. In the past, they had to buy them. We bought them all ahead of time, so they're wrapping those up now. For those who need to have them shipped, we will arrange for shipping. And shipping would be at your expense at that point, but we'll have arrangements for it. The boxes are a size that can be shipped.
Could you confirm that all cadets are eligible for the petition?
All cadets are eligible to petition. It's a petition. It's a request to stay here with your rationale as to why you would like them to stay here. Keep in mind, again, as you make that decision, in the event, think about it this way, I always, and must, as the leader of the institution, I and my senior staff must always consider worst case situation. I can tell you right now that we have a memo that goes down 14 people. If I get sick, so-and-so's next. If they get sick, so-and-so's next. We've gone down 14 levels. If we get down 7 levels of this sickness, there'll be 7 more down there till the last person standing will assume the presidency of the institution. The likelihood of your boy getting sick or hurt from this is reasonable. It's the same as it is anywhere else, frankly. And your boy, if they get it, the history is showing that they get it as a light flu or cold. That's really not the issue. And so many people are saying, well, it's safer here for the boys. Keep in mind that half of the faculty and staff here are in the target group of where this can be very, very hazardous for them. And if suddenly all of the senior leadership and the teachers and the staff start going down, who's going to feed your boy? Who's going to provide your boy medical capability? You should also know that the medical staff is so dedicated, they have packed their suitcases and moved onto the campus in case the campus does get quarantined. They are staying in their offices, some of them, as a place to sleep. We'll probably move them into the rooms that are vacated as the boys leave. But this virus isn't a particularly strong threat to young people. It is a very strong threat to all of us who take care of your young people while we're here. So while they may be well, they may be running the place if everybody's here and everybody else gets sick. And the more people who are here, and the more boys that are here, and the more interaction, and the more deliveries that we have, and the more people who are dropping things off, the more are the chances and exposures to this virus that we know is spreading across the country quite rapidly. So fill out your petition, send it in. If everybody wants to stay here, that's going to be a real problem and challenge for us because we know already we're having a difficult time, just like much of America is, getting as simple things as toilet paper. But we stockpiled early, but we only stockpiled enough for 3 weeks or so for 500 people. If 250 go home, now we have 6 weeks worth of supply. And I also have 6 weeks to go to find more of it. But the numbers, the bigger the numbers, the more difficult the challenge is to ensure that we can provide for the safety, security, and health of your student while they're here. And that's what you're expecting from us.
So we have over 150 people watching. Could you remind them that since it's a live stream, it will be available for on-demand viewing later?
Okay. So again, this whole video session is being recorded and will be available for you to review or to recommend to others to review after they get home later today. It will not be interactive at that point. They'll just be able to hear what the questions were and the answers that were presented.
It'll be at the same location.
They'll be at the same location you're logged into and watching it right now.
Okay. Give me just a minute.
You sort through the questions.
What about laundry that has not been returned?
The laundry people were meeting with the commandant this morning. They were working out getting laundry back, and I don't have that answer. Make sure we'll put that. At the same time, I have recorders in the room right now. If you see our eyes darting around, it's the different people, staff members who are in the room off camera. We'll get an answer on the laundry. We'll get that put under a frequently asked questions. I'm also going to provide somewhere in the next day or so a multi-page letter to everyone. It'll be quite detailed. We're running right now, the phone calls, text messages, and emails are running about 4 to 1 in favor of what we're doing. And 1 out of 5 are very unhappy. Some of you believe that this virus does not exist at all. I've actually gotten a phone call that I had fallen for the hoax and that the virus doesn't exist at all, that this is all made up. Okay, well, then the whole world has fallen for this hoax. It's a challenge, and we're trying to make the best decisions we can. One person said, remain open until the very last second that you can have to close. If anybody knows what that very last second is, please inform me immediately, because I don't. And if we're 1 second late and all airports, roads, and everything are closed down, then the letter's gonna be, why didn't you do this 1 second ago? I can't predict the future. We have stayed open, remained open, and we're doing everything we can to mitigate the situation and provide you options through the petition process to meet your needs, to meet the students' needs, and to provide for a safe, secure, and healthy environment for all students, faculty, and staff. Without a faculty and staff, you suddenly have 414 unsupervised boys on campus. We have to find that right medium that tries to meet as many needs. The one thing I can promise you right now, I cannot meet everyone's individual desire. I have received well over 100 notes, phone calls, text messages, and every single one of them has requested something different, other than the ones that have said, you know, we agree with your decision, which is running at about 4 to 1.
Sir, this is for the viewing audience. Some people are saying that we're skipping questions. We are skipping repeat questions that have already been answered. So
Yes, we are skipping repeat questions that were answered earlier in the broadcast, and you can review. If your question is, I'm not avoiding any questions. If your question's you appears to be skipped over, watch the whole video later on. You'll see it was asked right at the beginning of the session.
I think you might have already answered this, but if we're planning on petitioning to have our cadets stay there and complete the year on campus, do they need to stay there on campus this weekend?
Yeah, if your student leaves, they're not coming back. And so if you want to take your student home this weekend and then bring them back to campus because you decided that you do want them to stay, they have been exposed to everything between here and the time that they return, which pretty much would require me to quarantine them, which I don't have the facilities to quarantine 150 students. Because I don't know who they're talking to, I don't know what friends you've met with, and again, I don't know who's touched that gas pump or that food that you bought from the store on the way home. My wife yesterday, one of her coworkers went to a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, and the person was coughing at the restaurant. The employee said, the customer said to the employee, "Are you feeling well?" And she says, "No, I've got a fever, I'm sick, but I have to have this job, and so I'm here serving food." Is she got the regular flu, or does she have the coronavirus? Do not know. And so if those students leave this campus and they come back, I don't know where they've been, I don't know what they've touched, and more importantly, they don't know what they've touched. If they can go home in bubble wrap, touching nothing, drinking distilled water, and being fed oxygen through a tube, maybe then they can come home, back to us. But nobody's gonna be doing that level of extreme, and I have the responsibility to provide a safe, secure, and healthy environment for your students. So if you need to have a family discussion about it, tell them to get their cell phone and have the family discussion. But if they go home, I cannot allow them to return because I don't have the space or the staff to quarantine large numbers of individuals. I can quarantine a small number so that if one of our students starts to get sick, we can quarantine them and the nurses will stay with them 24/7. But I don't have that capability for 150 students. We don't have that large of an isolation ward.
Sir, do you have testing kits on site as well as a certified doctor?
That's a repeat question, but we do not have a doctor on campus. We have a doctor who comes to campus routinely through the week. He's a contract doctor. We can call him day or night. He has the authority to prescribe and so on and so forth. The test kits are not on any of the campuses in Georgia right now. They are being held by the public health officials at the county and state level. And so you can get tested at a hospital or you can work through your county to get them. If we had somebody today, we would probably go one of two ways. If it's an employee, we're willing to pay for the employee handling it through a private sector, which was faster. If it's on the public side, it takes longer to get the diagnosis, but it can be done through the hospital and through the public health. So there's multiple ways to be tested, but there are no kits on campus or on any campus, to my knowledge, in the state of Georgia at this time. But their kits are available in Georgia.
If we exercise the option of leaving our cadets on campus, can we visit them and go through an intake, screening, and cleaning process?
Question is, if your student does remain, will we be able to visit them? Again, answered earlier in the broadcast, but no, they have to be locked down. The screening process, if you come and present that you would have to present to me that you spoke to no one, touched nothing within the last 14 days, consumed no products that were delivered to you, didn't handle your US mail, and so on. You don't know, you may be feeling fine, but what we do know about this virus is that for a fact, you're contagious before you demonstrate any symptoms. So if your student's here, they're here for the duration. If you want to take them out, then they're not going to be allowed to return, and they'll revert to the online education process. We are working in the student affairs, we're trying to find ways to keep the boys entertained Monday through Sunday during this time, and trying to find different things for them to do to keep them occupied. It's harder though, you can imagine, it's much harder for me to entertain 412 boys than it is 50 boys. It all depends. These young men, you know, they're still young men and they're still active and there's still a lot of things they want to do. The bigger the number, the harder it is. So.
Parent asked, originally it seemed encouraged to take our cadets home, but now you're saying the petition is an option, and now it's unclear what we should do.
The decision is 100% yours. If you read the letter that we sent to you, it stands alone. It says, you know, we are transitioning to an online environment. That's what we are doing. We are following the directions and requests of the governor of the state, and you know, many schools just closed. We are going to continue operations and have the online environment. It is your decision whether or not you want to petition. It is our decision whether or not we'll honor that petition. That's why, you know, write out your response as to why you want to do this. I'm neither encouraging them to stay nor encouraging them to go. We're providing you that option that's there. I can tell you though, you need to assess the risks yourself. The larger the group that remains here, the more difficult and more risk the student has that should things go wrong, I mean really wrong at a national level, your student's not here. Last night, I have to share this story with you. I came across several cadets in the hallway and I asked them individually before they knew anything about whether we were closing or staying open or online or whatever. I asked them the question, what is the pulse? How are you feeling? And they all said, we're scared. And I think that's important for you to know. Your students said they're scared. And I said, scared about the virus? And very seriously said, oh, we're not scared about the virus. It doesn't hurt young people. It only kills old people. I thought that was rather insightful of them. They're not scared about the virus. They're scared about the following. I'm an international student and I cannot go home. My flights have been canceled internationally, and if spring break is coming and the campus is closed, which it is on spring break, where do I go? I'll be out on the street. So they're scared what's going to happen. Where am I going to be? How are you going to take care of me? If this continues, what's going to happen to me in the summer after the semester is over? Other students said, we're scared that you're going to, in fact, quarantine the campus, lock it down. And that's an important point. Quarantining campus means parents aren't coming to visit. Deliveries are shut down. And then we're sitting there having to deal with the resources we have on campus. That's what a quarantine is. We cannot disinfect all the things that come onto a campus. We don't know all the histories of all the deliveries that are coming in, to include the US mail. Everything is being touched, and we know this virus lives on surfaces for a certain period of time. So those students who said that the fear of being locked in here is twofold. We haven't seen our parents or guardians since at Christmas time. What happens if our parents get sick? We can't see them. We can't be there for them because we're locked down here. We want to be with our families during a time in which this is unprecedented in modern history of what's happening throughout the world. We'd like to be with our parents, and we need to be able to help our parents if they need that help. So the students were less fearful for themselves and more fearful for not having an opportunity to be with you, not having an opportunity to come, because I can't let them go back and forth. That will defeat all purposes. All of the recommendations, including when we met with our local health officials and epidemiologists, while you'll hear that the number one recommendation is washing your hands, what they told us, the number one recommendation is don't come into anything contact, reduce all your travel to the absolute essential minimal, because it is a fact that if you do not come in contact with this virus, you will not get the virus. You have to touch someone or something that has touched this virus. And so minimize all travel. If you do have to travel, and if you do have to meet with others, then wash your hands and ask them questions about have they been in contact with others in a risk area and so on.
Okay.
More questions?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just reminding parents that several video chat applications like FaceTime, Skype, or WhatsApp provides an opportunity to video chat with parents who want to see their student that decided to petition.
Yeah, hopefully you're in much better shape than I am in terms of social media, because my children are all in their 30s now, so I don't know what Snapchat is or how it works, or this YouTube business is new to me as well. I'm an old guy, I write a letter and communicate that way or make a phone call. But they have all these social media ways, and Snapchat, what are some of the others? WhatsApp, Skype, FaceTime, if you have an iPhone where you can communicate eyeball to eyeball. I think it's important for you to have this conversation with your son, because while you may want them to be here, many of them are actually worried about you, and they want to come home to be with you during a very trying time for the world, not for the state of Georgia, not for Gainesville, not for the United States, but a very trying time for the world. And I applaud them. And you should have seen this morning when they had their passing review. These boys are bonded together. They love each other. There were a lot of tears. There was a lot of, hey, we're brothers and we'll get through this and we'll see you in the fall, or we'll see you at commencement. So it's mixed, but have that conversation. I have, eyeball to eyeball, and it's enlightening.
What's the turnaround time of the petition being submitted and us hearing back?
Turnaround time, we'll try to get them within 24 hours. You think we can get them done? Because we have to process them, we have to check records and so on. I'd say 24 hours. I do not want to promise that I can have those done instantly. Because as you can imagine, while I'm sitting here and the senior staff are sitting in a room with me, there are other things that aren't getting done that have to get done in preparation. My phone is blowing up with phone calls and questions and demanding that I contact you immediately. I can't. I'm sitting here talking with you. I'm working with the finance people. I'm working with food service to provide some special meals for them. We're working with transportation. There's a lot going on here, as there are a lot of things going on, I assume, in your workplaces throughout the United States.
If we keep them there and then decide in 2 weeks it's better they come home, will we be able to pick them up?
If you decide to keep them here and in 2 weeks you want to bring them home, that's fine. If they go home, then they go into the online work environment and they do not return until this event is over.
Assuming transportation is available.
Yeah, that's the other part. As just pointed out, that's assuming they can go home. If 2 weeks from now, I don't know if you've heard about New Rochelle, New York, but the governor of New York surrounded New Rochelle, New York with the National Guard and declared that a quarantined area. And so if we are prohibited from letting them off, we're not prohibiting them. Whatever rules and laws and health department says, they can shut us down in terms of saying we can't go in or out. This is uncharted territory. So some of your questions, again, unless you have the ability to pick the lottery numbers, it's about the same as what's going to happen here and when is it going to happen and to what scale is it going to happen. So, but at the moment, yes, if you decide you want your student to stay here, you do the petition, and if it's approved, the student stays here. In 2 weeks, you say, this isn't working out. You can take them home, we'll switch them to full online, but they cannot return.
Could you remind a few of them that next week, what does it look like next week?
Okay, so next week, we're putting an operational pause on campus. Your students will have things, the ones who do remain here will have things to do. We'll keep them active, we'll feed them, we'll have some internal recreation. Again, all sports in the state of Georgia have been shut off by order of the state. So they'll have things to do next week. While the faculty are here meeting, those faculty who can be here, whose children aren't sent home from their schools. They'll be meeting to finalize all of the plans for both those who will be staying on campus instruction and those who will be online. So next week is an operational pause. There are no classes per se next week. Also, spring break is still in place, so there'll be no classes during spring break. But the boys who are here on campus, we will have things for them to do during that period as well. They do not get to go home on spring break. It is a spring break from academics for them, another break. And for those who are at home, there will be no instruction during spring break, and that gives the faculty the ability to assess where your students are, assess how well online is going, and then prepare for those remaining couple of weeks that take us to the finish line.
One parent is saying, can the cadets have their cell phones back, please, so we can make arrangements with them? It seems like some cadets still don't have their cell phones from their TAC officers.
I've reached out to the commandant. We'll get an answer quickly.
The question's going to the commandant right now. Keep in mind that he has a task, the commandant has a task of getting all of these boys packed up, their uniforms secured, their sabers secured, and things clean. So he may not have, some areas may not have their phones yet, but the executive officer is reaching out to the commandant now, emphasizing that we need to get them to them as soon as we can, while still continuing the mission of moving forward with the departures.
So we have 4 minutes remaining on the stream. Could you tell parents the best way to reach out with questions?
Best way to reach out with questions, my communications vice president, what's the best way for them to reach us for questions?
Send a PR at, well, how about A. Willis at Riverside Military?
A. Willis, the letter A is in alpha, Willis, W-I-L-L-I-S. A. Willis, all one continuous word, at riversidemilitary.com. That's my communications officer. She is bringing these in and summarizing them, because many of you are asking the same questions, and we're working on a frequently asked question list, so always go back to the site to see how this is progressing. As soon as I can get slowed down here a little bit, again, I'll write the 3 to 4 page letter about all the kind of considerations that we made in making this decision. For those of you I have had a call with, many of you have called me and have reached me, and by the time we finish the conversation, to a person of the ones who I have talked to, I haven't talked to everybody yet, I still have a list of people who have questions and concerns that I haven't gotten to yet, but to a person, when I have talked to them and said, well, in your decision-making process, have you considered the following? They said, no, I hadn't. It sounds like it's the right decision. And so, I have to look at, if I'm looking down 14 levels of people potentially being disabled by this virus, we're going down into the weeds. I have pre-positioned checks for all of our vendors so that the lights can stay on and the insurance policies can stay in place and checks can be made for the laundry and so on, because we don't know whether the CFO is going to catch this and not be able to sign checks, and then all of our contracts are void. We have multiple levels of payroll because we don't know if that entire finance division catches the virus. I'll tell you right now, their priority is going to be getting healed from the virus. It's not going to be on obtaining toilet paper for our cadets. So it's an interesting and challenging time, made more difficult the larger we are.
Have we, well, okay, okay. Let's see. What does it look like if you deny a petition?
If we deny a petition, then what will happen is you will be put into the online offering. It's gonna be hard pressed for you to find other schools right now because they're closed for you to move to. So the online, to finish out this last small percentage of the school, really is your best way so that you would have completed the 7th, 8th, 9th grade and graduate on time. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your consideration. If we need to run another one of these, we will, and get your questions into awillis@riversidemilitary.com. Thanks for supporting us, and please stay healthy, wash your hands, and reduce your contact with others.